Hello everyone, welcome to SwitchUp, as we once again have a look at some of the games coming out for the Switch in this upcoming week. In terms of dates, we're going from the 8th of March up until the 14th, to see if there's anything releasing worth your time and money. So which games are coming out for the Switch this week? Well, let's find out. First up then we have Beyond the Ice Palace 2. Here it says you'll need to arise from the abyss of death to reclaim your rightful throne in a captivating action platformer. You assume the mantle of the cursed king, wielding the chains that once imprisoned you, now transformed into formidable weapons to vanquish your enemies. It says you need to embrace your newfound strength and command over the chains that once bound you deep within the crypts. As well as vanquishing enemies, you can use the chains for navigation, attaching to rings and propelling yourself across chasms to reach new areas. There are power crystals to find, harnessing their essence will strategically enhance your abilities. And this is actually a sequel, a long-awaited sequel, to a game that first released in 1988, Beyond the Ice Palace, coming out back then for systems such as the Amiga, the Amstrad CPC, and the Commodore 64, amongst others. This releases on the 11th for £16.99, but you can get 10% off of that price until just before launch. Then we have Centum, which describes itself as an unreliable narrative-driven adventure game. It goes on to say that Centum appears to be a point-and-click adventure game, but beneath the surface is something altogether different. It promises to challenge traditional gaming conventions by weaving an intricate narrative where reality is as fluid as the mind of its narrator. You'll need to navigate a series of daunting scenarios, each shrouded in uncertainty and enigma, with every click and decision remembered, forcing you to grapple with the unreliable nature of the narrator's hints and guidance. I do like the sound of this actually, it sounds very interesting. Something I love about storytelling is that of an unreliable narrator. I do think it's a concept that can be used very well to really enhance a story. So to see it within a video game where obviously it directly impacts you as the player, sounds like it could make for a very good game. This one's out on the 11th and it will cost £14.99, but you can get 20% off of that price up until launch day. We then have Fate ReAwakened, which is linked to the Fate series of games that released back in the mid-2000s, and it says here you'll be revisiting the quaint town of Grove and the realms beyond as you prepare to enter the dungeon gate once again. It says the award-winning Fate series has gotten a modern facelift while remaining true to the nostalgic dungeon crawler classic. Enhanced for a new generation, according to the blurb, it says you'll experience everything you love about the Fate series in higher definition. And this ReAwakened edition, if you like, actually has all 4 games, the ones I alluded to earlier, included here. So you have the original Fate, Fate Undiscovered Realms, Fate the Traitor Soul, and Fate the Cursed King. That's not bad at all. I'll be honest, when I first started reading this, I expected it to be a newer edition, but to be the 4 games all bundled into one for a price of £24.99. If you're obviously a fan of the series, that doesn't seem like a bad deal to me. This one releases on the 12th of March. Next up we have 3D Don't Die Mr. Robot. Now I've included this one because we reviewed the original Don't Die Mr. Robot game many years ago now. It must have been around about 2018 when the channel was obviously a fair bit smaller. And it was a fun little game, like an arcade high score chaser. And it takes that premise again by the looks of it and turns it into a 3D game. It says it's a reboot of that 2D game where you need to dodge enemies and collect explosive fruits to survive. You can use the coins you've collected across game modes to unlock shades, hats, shoes and more, and master an addictive scoring system and challenge online leaderboards. I'm relatively sure it was Mark that reviewed this one back in the day. If I can find a link to it, I'll put it in the top right hand corner if you want to give it a watch. But yeah, I thought I'd give this one a mention because that first game was actually pretty good. This one's out on the 12th and it will cost £8.99 or your regional equivalent. We then have Apple Knight 2, which is an action platformer with hack and slash combat, where it says you'll battle through hordes of enemies, exploring worlds filled with dungeons, getting powerful loot and unlocking a vast arsenal of weapons and skins. You'll need to master swift dashes to evade enemy melee and ranged attacks, discover multiple secret areas, and can parry melee attacks with precision and deflect projectiles using your trusty sword. It does have a nice pixel art style to it, looks very nice and clean, and it's selling for quite a decent price of £7.19, and it's another one that releases on the 12th. We then have Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, Full Land of Water and Light. Now, I know this is a series of, I believe it's novels, and there's a manga and anime and all sorts attached to this, as well as video games, of course, but it's not a series I know anything about, and I did struggle to find any specific information about this particular game in terms of whether it's a new release, etc., other than what obviously I'm reading from the eShop blurb. So if you are a fan, please do feel free to shed some light in the comment section. It says this is a story about tracing the hero's trials, and it's a side-scrolling RPG where you'll be defeating monsters and advancing through stages to complete the story. To be honest, I mean, I could have told you that much without even reading the blurb, so not a huge amount I can say about this one. As I said though, if you are an expert, please do feel free to help us out. It releases on the 13th, and it will cost £41.99 or your regional equivalent. Next one is One Button Bosses. As the title implies, it says you have one button, there are big bosses to beat. You need to push, tap and bash in the handcrafted campaign or in the roguelike rifts. It says there is a 4-hour campaign and a concise roguelike game mode as you defeat enemies with just one button. It promises a synth wave soundtrack as you follow the story of Ace, with each of the bosses needed to be beaten in a best of 3, 5 or 7. And it says you'll never be hard stuck on a boss fight as there is always a different level to try. Judging by the screenshots, it looks incredibly psychedelic. It reminds me of Asteroids, just going on what I can see here. Whether that's anything like what the game will play like, I don't know. Hopefully you'll see in the trailer now. But it's out on the 13th and it'll cost £7.99. The penultimate game for the week is Endless Deaths. It says here you'll experience a thrilling top-down twin-stick shooter roguelite, battling zombies, upgrading your gear, and facing fresh challenges in every playthrough. It's a top-down twin-stick shooter, with your mission being to navigate procedurally generated levels filled with relentless undead, using a wide arsenal of weapons and unique character abilities to stay alive. It says there are 5 distinct tile sets, and procedural generation ensure that every playthrough presents a new challenge. It promises endless replayability and dynamic challenges, and whilst it looks relatively generic, I must admit I do have a massive soft spot for twin-stick shooters these days. Well, I say these days, going all the way back to things such as Robotron and Smash TV in the arcades, and even though they lost the twin-stick element on home consoles, they were still great fun to play. This one will cost you £8.99 when it releases on the 13th, but you can get 50% off of that price up until the 19th. And finally for the week then, we have Escape Site 13. It promises to immerse players in a shadow-laden, side-scrolling adventure inspired by the enigmatic lore of SCP containment. It says you'll step into the role of an investigator tasked with exploring the recently unearthed structure known as Site 13, and as you investigate its foreboding corridors, you'll unearth forgotten documents that hold the key to its mysteries. As you delve further, it says you'll encounter horrors beyond comprehension, and promises immersive storytelling and richly detailed world building. This releases, again, as I said, on the 13th, and it will sell for £13.49 or your regional equivalent. So there you have it, another week of Nintendo Switch releases. Do any of those games interest you? Will you be picking any of them up? Please do let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget, if you are looking for eShop credit to pick any of these games up, you can use our website, switchup.gg, to buy your eShop cards, and doing so will get you 5% of your purchase price back as cashback. There are also links down there to places such as PlayAsia and Nixie, if you're looking to pick up anything from there, and using our links and codes will get you money off of your purchase price. If you're looking for something else to watch, my other channel, GB Bricks, has just released a video on one of the new 1st of March LEGO releases, being the Red Bull Speed Champions RB20. I'll put a card to that in the top right hand corner if you want to give it a watch. It would be much appreciated if you did. And a thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.